All right, people, here I am. My name is Brayden, and this is one of my first new videos I'm putting out there. I have a bunch of interests that I plan to make videos around, but one of the biggest things I found myself getting involved with is politics, and just learning all different parts of it. I come from a perspective of I know we can do so much better, both for our environment, our people, and so I want to figure out ways to help break down barriers people typically have between them and getting involved in either politics or policy in a way, becoming more educated and thoughtful about it. So that's kind of the general sense. So I welcome you to that. My show and first video today is about Colorado caucus and what that is, what that entails. Because we've got one too. It's going to look different than Iowa's in many different ways. And I just want to help bridge that gap, help people understand what it is and what it's about. So, first thing to remember are important dates. Just get them out of the way. February 14th, which is a week from this video recording, is the last day to register with the party to participate in their caucus. So you want to participate in all it's about to be registered by then. Later on in the process, you can switch back to something else if you're feeling it, unaffiliated, independent, etc. But if you want to participate in caucus, that's the date. If you are going to be 18 by the time the presidential election comes around, you can participate in caucus. You just need to be registered to vote. Other date is March 7th. That is the date of the caucus itself. It's on a Saturday. I want to say it's not right in the morning, and but will take up a few hours in your day, and mark that. Earlier that week and heading up to that week is our primary ballot. So our actual primary ballot for presidency is March 3rd, but we get mail-in ballots. We're really lucky in Colorado, and we'll actually start seeing our primary ballots in the mail in the next week or so, throughout February for sure. All right, so what is caucus, how it works, why is it important? So caucus here in Colorado, since we elected to not have our presidential ticket on there, it's the next highest ticket, which is our Senate race. So that is a big part of what it's about. That means we caucus for the Senate, and for the most part, what's going to happen is you're going to show up to a physical location. A lot of times it's schools or libraries. It tends to be like schools because you can fit a lot of people into like cafeteria areas, and it's really not that expensive to get that space. And so you'll show up, you'll find your precinct, which is the smallest grouping of how we organize our state, and you'll start meeting them. Someone will introduce the night, what's going on, similar to what I'm doing now. And then there could be some people that will speak. They might have a surrogate, or some upcoming people might say some things, and then you'll get to the caucus part. I think we'll also share, and so caucus then begins. And so we'll talk, since I'm already on the line of it, I'll talk about through the Senate and how you pick your person. But I want to say that that's actually not the most important part of what happens at a caucus, but I'll get to that second. The first most important part about a caucus, the Senate part. You'll go into your small precinct groups, and there'll be a general preference poll. So these won't be your final votes, but you go around and talk about who you're in support of. You take tallies of who's out there, and this is to get a sense of what other supporters are in your precinct. It could be all over the place. It could be some people that are strictly in one area or might have a few different people of interests, but they'll put down one person. Or unaffiliated is a category too. It's like undecided or unaffiliated is like the other category. And I'm going to create another video about caucus strategy. So once I get my links up there, I will point and make a little thing up here and link that video, because I think when it comes to that and caucus strategy, that's a bit of a bigger topic, but this is more of what is caucus. And so you'll do that at general preference, you'll talk about the different candidates, and then you'll do a first round of voting where each person will choose one of the categories. And you'll tally it up, and using this, you get this piece of paper, so it's all recorded on paper. And using the piece of paper, you do some math based on how many people showed up and how many people raised their hand for each person. People walk around and help you with the math. If someone isn't at like a threshold, certain thresholds, you do another vote. And I think something happens where you like drop some of the lower people so that there's more votes to go around. And you do a few of these things until the amount of delegates you have is decided. And I think it's like 2 to 3 delegates per precinct. So if there's one person with a bunch of percent, 50%, 60%, they could get 2 delegates. Sometimes they could get 2, someone else could get 1. You divvy up the delegates based on this paper's math. And then what I think is the somewhat of the more important part is then you pick who those delegates are to go to the next level. And I think this is the part where people tend to get confused, and if you have questions, ask them here. But this is how it makes sense in my head, is that this is like the most democratic way of doing it. It is messy, and it can be rigorous, but you'll pick delegates to represent your precinct, and about 2 weeks to 3 weeks later is the bigger county assembly, where all those delegates will go to the next level and you kind of do a similar process, but you pick delegates and people to represent you, then at the state level, and then later on in the, it's like a month or 2 months from now, then there's the state assembly where you pick your delegates to send to the Democratic National Convention. So this is part of where it gets tricky too, is though we're caucusing for Senate candidates, the delegates are really technically for the Democratic National Convention, because as a state, we have our Senate primary ballot. So I think it's July, we actually do have a ballot to see who's our Senate primary person. Depending on caucus math, certain people will be on that ballot or not. So if you have someone you really like, some candidates are doing petitions to get on the ballot, but some candidates will only be on the ballot later if they have enough caucus supporters. So that's like the Senate part of it. But later on, the delegate chain is who we send to the Democratic National Convention, which is really important because at the Democratic National Convention is where you choose to see who's on the ticket or not to go against Donald Trump. Only the first round of the DNC delegate vote are those people locked in to who the state said they're supposed to be there for. So, for example, if the state was mostly for Bernie Sanders, and so you have to pick delegates that are aligned with him. And so not everyone maybe you send is a staunch Bernie person, but most of the people that get sent support of him, depending on how the math turns out. Then there's the tiers, because delegates get split up based on percentages above 15%, the viability threshold. After the first ballot, some of the people up there let's say they weren't staunch Bernie people, but were like, I wanted to participate, and then they get there. On the second roll, let's say he didn't get 51% and it isn't the current delegate on first run of it at the national convention, people can swap. So it's really important to make sure you're voting for, at your precinct level, at your county level, at your state level, people who are aligned. And to be able to vote for them, you have to stay a part of the process. So this is actually where I think the more important part of caucuses is being able to pick people to represent you and being able to put yourself in a spot where you have a vote with the party, not just when big elections are around. Because at caucus, you also pick your precinct organizer and your precinct organizer assistant. And the precinct organizer position is like your head Dem for your precinct. I think you pick two of them and you pick two alternates / assistants. The assistants doesn't have a vote, but they can help you on the ground. And you can talk about who you support and send them if you aren't there. But those 2 votes per precinct are votes then you have at your county party to elect county officers, and then it trickles on up because certain county officers then have say at the state level. So this is, I think, the big takeaway that I have learned over the past 2 years or so is show up to caucus, because then you get votes within your county party and you get votes within your state party. If you can persuade people in your precinct to vote for you. This will also be covered in my caucus strategy video that I'll be sharing, because both for being a delegate and a precinct person, and then also just trying to get people to show up to your caucus that align with you can be really important. So let's see. I went through my hypothetical, why it's important for the national convention. So I guess I could just explain a little bit more about how it looks. On the Saturday, you'll get up, you'll head to your precinct organizing spot. There's normally like 7 to 8 precincts that show up to like a high school or middle school, and I'll link in this video or below somewhere where you can figure out what that is for you. I'll also put down a link where you can register online, since that's coming up. You show up, you start talking to people there. Someone who's leading the site will usher everyone in, go through the process a bit. Like I said, people will give speeches, and then you'll go into your sub-segments. I believe there's going to be county announcements and too, so local announcements, upcoming events. There could be some table with some papers, but it's mostly you get together and you'll go through the Senate process. You go through the different rounds of it. You'll vote on your precinct person, and then there'll be a place where you can add things to the platform. So if you want people to be supportive, you can write platform planks down and submit them near the end, and your group technically votes on them. When I caucused, I threw something out there and everyone approved it, and then it's supposed to go to a later stage, and the platform committee will talk about adding it to the platform. I have been on the platform committee this cycle, and so we're doing some cool things with our platform in Douglas County. In the past, I wasn't sure if someone had heard it or seen my statement, because I put something in there about ranked choice voting. But this time around, at least at Douglas County, we have a process in place, and we've been very proactive about how we're going to run it. So we'll look at all those, include some of them, and then finalize our platform. And then platform, maybe some bookkeeping to make sure you get certain people's emails and stuff, yada yada, and that's caucus day. After that, yes, then county assembly, state assembly, Democrat National Convention. in a way, it is sloppy and not super straightforward. But I think there's a reason for it. And the reason is, rather than just people showing up and voting based on what they've heard or like a small amount of interactions with close loved ones or coworkers, is you're kind of forced to talk with other people that live near you and discuss who you think will be best to represent you. And with that give and take, you can share some things and persuade people. So rather than just what they were thinking when they walked in, you have a chance to swing things if you do a good enough job doing it. So I think that's one reason why caucuses are still a thing, and why I think it's an interesting process. And then it's also, it really is like supposed to be the truest form of democracy. It's like the smallest group possible precinct. It's like 5 blocks of people or so, depending on population density. And you get together and you elect your precinct organizer, the people that to lead and kind of be your contact person for your most local area. And then that person gets a vote at the county at the next stage. If the county's big enough, or a multi-county, your officers. And then from there, they get to elect people to be on the state board, who elect DNC members, who is delegates to the national convention, who is on your state board of officers, things like that. And then all the states get together and then elect people and choose people. So it's people going up. It's sloppy, it's messy, but it's democratic. The only thing that isn't democratic about it is they haven't done a good job of sharing how it works, why it's important, and to get involved in it. And that's, I think, part of what I'm out here is spreading this knowledge. Like, we could have a party that better represents the people if we got more involved and took up positions at different levels. And it's the time to do it. It's a time of change. It's a time where we can see how bad it can get and know that there's better ways of doing it. And both sides, old leadership has responsibility in us getting to this point. So I think people power, grassroots power is what it's going to take to say, we're ready to step up. These are the ideas that we think are most important. And if you're going to stand in our way, we're going to get enough people together to outvote you from your position. Either you've been there too long or you're not paying attention, and we will replace you. We're still going for things that we think will help you and future generations. So it's not like you're losing out, but we will take up those positions and do good with them. And that's what I'm about. All right. So this has been my caucus video. Let me know if you still have any questions, and I'll get back to you. This is just one of many political themed videos to come. So subscribe if you're interested. I'm working on a few different projects, some in the political space, some in the personal development kind of space. It's more centered around young people in the transition to either post-high school or post-college. But I do think some of the things I'm working on. So follow this channel and I'll share more. And in the comments below, I'll link anything else I think is relevant. This is me just getting going, so I'll become more organized and better at this as I go. And talk to you soon. It's been fun. See you guys.